have an appetite to learn, have an appetite for technology, and that's the kind of person that I want on my team.
If you're thinking about being a project manager in the litigation support space, you could do no better than to get some free advice from Paul McVoy of Meta-e Discovery. Paul has been in the space a long time, has done some very sophisticated work, has mentored many successful legal project managers, and is really well thought of in our community. He's also just a super nice guy. We caught up with Paul at the most recent Georgetown eDiscovery conference, and I sat down with Paul to talk about what makes a great legal project manager. Here's our visit with Paul.
I'm Paul McVoy, CEO of Meta-e Discovery.
And we're here today at Georgetown 2021, and thanks for giving us some time today. And I know our topic today is what makes a good project manager, but Paul, we always start with, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be doing what you're doing at Meta-e.
Sure. So I actually started as paralegal at Jones Day, and
Wow.
I was not afraid of computers and happened to be on the ground floor of eDiscovery. So at the point where paper was turning into electronic documents, that's where I was. So one of my first projects was someone gave me a CD and said, print this. We want to review it tomorrow morning. And I looked at it and it was all Excel spreadsheets. So I had my team build 500 boxes. So when the partner came in the next day, he saw 500 boxes and I said, that's what you wanted me to do. And he said, I hope you didn't do that. And I said, of course I didn't do that. Here's the 4 spreadsheets you need to look at. So that was my start as a project manager.
Oh,
and it really embodies. Embodies. It really embodies what I believe a project manager is, and that is proactive. There's nothing else that I look for more in a person. I don't care if they have any technical background, any legal background. It's that proactive, you see a problem, you take care of a problem any phase.
Your head's in the game.
Your head's in the game, yes. Yeah. It really has to be about proactive. Because people, especially in the e-discovery world, they don't know what they're doing. And there are very many people that are scared, and so they act panicky, especially in the legal field. They have deadlines coming up, they don't realize what the job entails. And so you try and get ahead of it, and you try and take care of them, and you try and make it so that they're not getting panicky.
I'm with you. Okay, so I got us off track.
That's all right.
From Jones Day, where next?
And that's it. That was really it. That started my whole career. So Jones Day, I ended up heading their entire worldwide operation. A vendor came along and said, we want to start a e-discovery vendor. And I said, okay. And I went and did that for a year and a half and then went back in-house at Milberg. And Ariana Tadler and I ended up starting a company within Milberg and started doing very well with it and decided we would take that out and make Meta-e.
What year did you start with Milberg? When did all that start?
That was 2005.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I started in 2005 and they were a very reactive e-discovery department, and again, proactive is what it's all about. They would get the CDs and print the CDs and do the things you should never do as a project manager. And so over the next year or two, we kind of transformed them. We brought relativity in-house and we started offering our services to co-counsel, and co-counsel were so impressed by how we were different than the regular e-discovery practitioners, because we weren't a vendor then, that they started calling us for cases that had nothing to do with Milberg as co-counsel. And so we built a pricing model and started making a lot of money for Milberg, and different things happened with the firm and they went in a different direction, and it was a perfect time for us to launch.
Cool. And Meta-e started about when?
2015, the end of 2015.
The epic year of e-discovery for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Great. So tell us a little bit about Meta-e and where y'all are. And
So Meta-e was born from a plaintiff's law firm, so we have a plaintiff understanding that I think is kind of unique for us and which we really like. Yeah. We understand it's a different workflow. So I started at Jones Day and I was the one producing the millions of documents. It was interesting at Milberg to be the one receiving the millions of documents. So one of my last projects at Jones Day was the XM Sirius merger. And one of my first cases at Milberg was challenging the XM Sirius merger. So that was enlightening for a number of reasons, because I liked all of the lawyers involved. And it was very adversarial, and it was very drawn out, and I thought I could bring a little bit of moderation to the feeling.
Did it work?
It did work. It did work because our team at Milberg was very angry with the team at Jones Day. And I said, these are good guys, and they're just doing their job. And,
Right.
you know, you have to get over the stereotypes. And I could say the same thing to the guys at Jones Day. It's like, we're just doing our part of the whole process.
Right.
You know, and if
We all have a role to play.
we all have a role to play. And I think it went much better.
Interesting.
Because I think they could trust that I was doing the right thing on the plaintiff side for them, because they knew I always did the right thing on the defense side.
That's an interesting thing that you raise that point, because so often, you know, there is an aspect of what we do, which is, you know, it is what it is, right? It's the cold hard facts. It's the ones and zeros.
Yep.
And there is oftentimes a role, it seems, for that calming influence, that third-party neutral-ish
Yes.
kind of role.
Yes.
And it sounds like you've had some experience doing it.
Well, yeah, and I always tell my team, we're at the logistics, right? The merits of the case, kind of what we were talking about yesterday during my panel. The merits of the case are really where everyone needs to get to. And so we just try to facilitate in as easy way as possible that facilitation to the merits, because that's what it's all about. When I was at Jones Day, we went into a large company, and we had to interview 100 people, 100 custodians for a matter that they were being sued on. And I got to sit with the CEO because the partner got food poisoning. So normally they would not put a litigation support non-lawyer in front of the CEO of a Fortune 5 company. But I sat down with him and I said, I need about a half hour of your time. We're going to talk about your data, your email, your paper. And he said, I do not have the time for this. And I looked at him in the eye and I said, no, that's totally fine. We're talking to 100 people today. And if they don't have the time and we just pull all their data and we take all of their documents, you will now have spent $50,000 a person to get that done. Or you spend 10 minutes with me, a half hour with me, it'll be $5,000 a person. You decide. And he sent a firm-wide email to all 10,000 employees, even though we were only speaking to 100.
Right.
You will listen to these people and give them their half hour.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's
Cool.
that you know, calming and facilitating, because they don't understand the process and they don't understand the importance. And that man needed to get back to work.
I'm with you. Paul, I wanted this visit to be for persons who are moving up the ladder and looking to get into that project management role. And there's so many different paths. Some people start off, you know, they come up through the doc review ranks.
Correct.
And watch what their project manager does and aspires to have more responsibility. Other people have other different paths to it, but I think folks would benefit so much by someone with your perspective and your experience. If you could just give the advice of a person that wants to be a great project manager, what you're looking for when you look for those people to join your team, and what you're looking for when they're on your team, and how they work.
Yeah, sure. So in addition to being proactive, right, because that's the number one thing, I really like a person that has confidence, right? Because you're often talking up the ladder. You're talking to people that are in charge of a case, partners, you know, CEOs of companies, and you have to have a confidence that you know what you're doing and that you're doing it well.
Well, what if you don't know what you're doing yet?
Yeah, but you always know what you're doing. You know the end goal. You're producing or receiving documents. And so if there's and often happens as a project manager, you come across something you've never come across before. But you have to have the confidence to say, I know I can figure this out, or I'm with a team that can figure it out, or in a network that can figure it out. You know, you don't have to be on a team where you can call someone. You can call a peer that you've met at Georgetown, or you can call someone that you've met along the way.
Use your resources.
Use your resources. And again, it's that proactive, creative approach to solving problems. That's really all it is. Our best project managers have come from outside the industry. They've come from areas where they have had to do something either entrepreneurial or on their own, and they've kind of made it themselves.
Interesting.
And we really, I mean, when we get lawyers, for instance, that become project managers, there's a path that they have to choose, right? I'm either going to go down the legal side or the logistics side. And that experience they have as lawyers is invaluable as long as they realize they're no longer lawyers. They're not litigating a case, they're facilitating the case, right? So I think for us, it's that person that's creative, it's that person that has confidence. The details, you know, there's so many details and there's so many things, and I know people that can keep it all in their head, And I know people like me that write everything down because I won't keep it all in my head and I have to see it visually. That to me, you can be a multitasker in many different ways and learn to be your own multitasker. But you are multitasking and you're prioritizing. I think the last aspect that I would find very, very important is someone that can manage expectations, right? The management of expectations is probably the most challenging because, again, you have the lawyers and they're always seeking to meet a deadline that they don't always tell you about. And you just kind of have to stay ahead of them and manage the term physics comes up in e-discovery a lot, and you don't expect it to. But if someone gives you 500 gigs, there's no way that you can have that ready in 2 hours. Managing expectations to say, I can have 10,000 documents in 2 hours and 10,000 documents in 2 hours after that and after that. If they understand what the path is, they're much less reticent to get angry with you or panicked or think that their deadlines are not going to be met. And having dealt with this for so long, there are some times where you're below a deadline. And it's much better if you tell a person much sooner. They can call the other side, no matter how adversarial it is. You can always say, well, it's not going to happen. And I'm giving you as much warning as I can.
Right.
And that eases a lot and smooths a lot of the tensions that can build in our job because, it's not always possible.
How do you help folks manage? It can be a really stressful job.
Yes.
Extremely stressful.
Yes.
And it's almost it's all I was going to say it's almost a 24/7 job.
Yes.
For a lot of people.
Yes.
And how do you help folks manage that sort of pressure cooker environment?
That's a great question because we focus a lot of it at my company on trying to manage that life-work balance. And what I think is key and what we used to do at Jones Day and what we did at Milberg and everywhere I've been is we usually have 2 or 3 people helping a case. One that's kind of involved and just understands the players and the path and the progress of the case so that you can have a day off. You can go to dinner with your spouse. You can take your kids to their, class play, and the case can continue to go. It's that aspect of being proactive. You see you need some time off. You see you want to have some personal time. You coordinate with your team, with the support people that are around you. If you don't have support people around you, then you proactively plan your own gaps, right? I've been on teams where I'm the only one, and there is no one backing me up, and there's no assistant, and there's no tech loading data. But again, you just realize what your personal planning process needs to be, and you make your own gaps. You make your own decompression time. If you can manage expectations so people understand what's happening, then you can create these little gaps for yourself so that you can just get away from the job and do what you need to do.
So you mentioned something I thought was interesting. What I came to understand is that project management is a skill set of its own, independent of the legal context. There are project management professional certifications that apply to building airplanes and the construction industry, and those principles are kind of universal. For someone who may be thinking, I can see when I stutter, I edit it out, right? So I can stutter, it's fine. It'll all go in the trash can.
I think you should keep it in. It makes you more approachable.
What I'm trying to say is, for an aspiring project manager that thinks there's a lot about this business that I just don't know yet, is there something that you can do that kind of gives them the confidence to say you're among a team? If you don't know the answer, there's somebody that next to you that will know the answer. How to help make them manage those anxieties about maybe not knowing all the substantive area yet, but getting into the seat and taking the role on.
No, and that's also a very good question because right now project managers are few and far between, and good ones are even harder to find. And so we have started recruiting from outside of the e-discovery legal world because there are great project managers out there, and they might be managing, making donuts at Dunkin' Donuts, and they understand the philosophy of project management, and it is just moving, data from one side of the process to the other side of the process. And so I think it's much easier to get over the substance of what we do, the legal part of what we do, if you understand the little components of what you're doing, and you will learn it. Our first day of orientation for our project managers is the legal system, and I just go through it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I go through the process from the filing of a case all the way through trial. It's something that's helpful, but not necessary for them to know their job. Loading data doesn't require that you know that you can appeal to the Supreme Court and that's it. But loading data and making sure that if you're loading 1,000 documents, you have loaded 1,000 documents.
Right.
Project management is independent of the field we're in. And good project managers understand that they're just doing a process. Plan your process. Plan what you're doing now, what you're going to do next, and what you're going to do after that.
So for some young person or younger person, not even necessarily a young person watching this, thinking, I'd like to get into legal project management, it sounds like don't feel like legal experience is necessarily a barrier to being successful in that role.
I 100% agree. Have an appetite to learn, have an appetite for technology, and that's the kind of person that I want on my team.
And at this point, Paul and I both realized we were late for our next session at the Georgetown conference. And we jumped up and I failed to thank him on the tape for the time that he spent with us. So Paul, thanks very much. And here's how you can get in touch with Paul at MetaEve Discovery for just about anything you need in the electronic discovery space. Thanks again.